Hey everyone and welcome back to the channel. Just another quick tip video today, and today we're going to be looking at why this case here is the single most important item in the game that you can get. This of course is a stims case, and we're going to be looking at some underrated stims that you might not be using that you should have on you every single raid you go into. And more importantly, we're going to be looking at what these stims can do for you that can help you out in raid. We're not going to be looking at every single stim in the game because a lot of them do the same job but just in different ways. But we are going to be looking at 6 stims I think are really important to have on you at all times. And if you feel like helping the channel out, consider dropping a like, a subscribe and even a comment. It'll really help the channel out more than you know. I hope you guys enjoy the video and let's get into it. So the first stim we're going to talk about is adrenaline, and this might be a stim that you often overlook and just see as an easy vendor for some extra cash. But let's take a deeper look at some of the benefits this stim can give you. So this stim only lasts for 60 seconds, but during that time it'll give you plus 10 endurance, plus 10 strength, and the two big ones here which make it really good are the plus 10 recoil control and the health regeneration plus 4 for 15 seconds. Those two last ones is what make this sim really great. So think about those times, especially early white, where somebody's landed a couple of rounds on you. Your PMC is low HP, you're in a lot of pain, your guy's limping everywhere and you're struggling to land your shots. This stim will solve all of those problems. The plus 4 HP for 15 seconds, which I'll show you a clip now of how good that can actually be. This will help counter the amount of HP you're losing from the bleeds you get. The pain removal and the extra recoil control will help keep you in the fight and even give you the upper hand. There's nothing worse when a guy catches you unaware, he's got you low HP and he knows it and he's still aggressively pushing you. But if you pop this and come back out swinging, you'll catch him completely by surprise and he'll be really wondering how he didn't kill you. The only two negatives of this stim is that it gives you minus 10 stress resistance, but that doesn't really matter because you're going to be in a sticky situation that you need to get out of anyway. And it does mess with your hydration and energy recovery, but if you make sure that you're eating and drinking anything you find during the raid, you won't have a problem with that anyway. So give this stim a try and let me know down in the comments how it performs for you. So the next stim we're going to be talking about is the Zagustin. This is one of those stims that when I first got into Tarkov, I often overlooked a lot. But let's take a look at what this stim can actually do for you. So in a nutshell, what this stim basically does, which is a bit crazy when you say it like this, but it more or less makes you immune to any types of bleeds for 180 seconds. During that time, it is impossible for a PMC to shoot you and for you to get a light or a heavy bleed. It just won't happen. And any bleeds that you did have prior to popping this, they will just completely stop. So when will this stim actually be useful? Personally, I think this will come in handy when you get shot a bunch of times in the legs or arms by like a scav, PMC, or even bosses, and you manage to get away and get a bit of time to heal and do some repairs. To save any of your limbs getting blacked out, or if you're really low HP and about to die due to blood loss, this stim will really come in handy because it'll allow you to do the more important things like getting your thorax HP back up and your head HP back up to full. For me, this is one of the stims that I use less often, but when I have needed it, I've actually really needed it. So it's good to have on you just in case you do end up needing it. So in terms of the downsides to this stim is that it'll give you minus 5 metabolism, which doesn't really matter if you're about to die. It'll also start to give you hand tremors after 170 seconds has gone by. But that will only last 40 seconds and hopefully you would have got out of that bad situation by then. Also, which is another downside, which is a common theme among the stims, is it'll give you minus 1.4 hydration for 40 seconds. So just make sure that you're drinking and eating throughout the raid and you should be fine with those negative debuffs. The next stim we're going to be looking at is one that has a really long name that I just like to call the Green stim, but it is called the Regenerative stimulant. This stim is probably the absolute king of getting you out of bad situations. And for that reason, it is a bit more priced on the flea market, but it is 100% completely worth it to have one on you at all times. So what does this stim actually do for you? So this stim, it will remove contusion first off, which is the ringing and blurriness once you get a ricochet off your helmet. But the big one here is your health regeneration for 60 seconds plus 6.5 HP per second for 60 seconds. That is absolutely huge. If I could compare this stim to what I could actually do, it would basically make you Wolverine. Anytime you get shot or take any type of damage, that damage will be more or less instantly healed. This stim is really useful for when you're really low HP and you've managed to get away to hide for a second to heal. If you pop this, you'll be full HP in a matter of seconds. Out of all the stims on this list, this one has probably saved me the most. The only real downside to this stim is that it will absolutely tank your hydration and energy more than the other stims will. So if you do end up needing to pop this stim, just make sure you try and get out of that raid pretty quickly after, unless obviously you've got food or drink on you. It's also worth mentioning as well is that this stim will not provide any painkillers, so if you do end up using this, make sure you've got some kind of painkiller popped at the same time because they all work really well together. And the next stim we're going to talk about is the Mule stim. This is probably the most expensive one on the list, but it is really good and important one as well. So what does this stim actually do for you? Well, this stim will give you an extra plus 50% carrying weight. This is really, really useful for when you've killed a lot of people or killed one of the bosses and got all their loot in your bag, and to save you the trouble of slowly walking out and being really vulnerable to headshots. This will allow you to walk and sprint pretty much as normal. Now, it's worth noting the downsides to this stim because they are pretty bad. I'd only recommend popping this if you're 100% heading straight for that extract and you don't plan on doing anything else during the raid. So the downside to this stim is that once you've used it, you'll lose 0.1 HP per second. So over time, you'll start losing HP over your entire body. And another downside, which is a really big one, is it gives you plus 9% damage taken from anything. So any fall damage you take or any shots you get hit with, it'll give you plus 9% damage from that. So it's really not good. So if you do pop this, make sure you are going straight for that extract and don't plan on doing absolutely anything in that raid. But that extra plus 50% carrying limit is really good at getting you out of that raid when you have a lot of stuff on you. So if you end up having a lot of stuff in your bag and you're really overweight, take a look whether it's worth getting out of that raid right now, and if it is, maybe pop that mule and run straight to the extract and then just get out with what you got. The next stim we're looking at is pretty much like the staple of the PvP stims, and that is the Propital. This is pretty similar to the one we covered last time, the adrenaline one, but it is a bit more the relaxed version. I say that because most people know it as giving you extra HP per second, but it is a lot slower than the adrenaline, but it does last a lot longer. The Propital will give you plus 1 HP per second for 300 seconds, whereas the adrenaline will give you plus 4 HP for 15 seconds. So Propital's more for those situations where you know you're about to get into a fight, or you've only taken a few hit points of damage and you don't need that extra HP immediately. Another good thing about the Propital is it'll give you plus 20 skill points towards your health and your vitality, and that basically means you'll have a lower chance of getting bleeds and lower chance of getting fractures. It doesn't completely remove the possibility of you get them, but it does lower it by quite a bit. So again, this stim is pretty good for popping before you get into a fight, if you know you're getting into one. There's no real downside to this stim other than after a certain amount of time you'll get hand tremor and tunnel vision, but that will only last for 30 seconds, so it's not really that big of a deal. And finally, the last stim that I wanted to talk about in the top 6 that you should have is the blue stim, also known as the SJ6. So what this stim will do is it'll basically turn you into a super soldier, as you'll be able to run for absolutely ages. This stim will last for 240 seconds, and during that time it'll give you an extra plus 30 max stamina and a plus 2 stamina recovery for that time that you have it. So this stim could be used as an alternative for a mule for when you have a lot of loot on you and you just want to run to that extract, or if you want to get to a high value loot spot and you've spawned pretty far away from it, you can pop this and pretty much arrive at the same times as the guys that had a good spawn for it. So in a nutshell, this stim basically turns you into a marathon runner. The only downside to this stim is that after 200 seconds, you'll get hand tremors and tunnel vision effect, but that will only last for 40 seconds, so again, that doesn't really matter. And that pretty much does it for all the sims I wanted to cover. Let me know down in the comments if you learned anything new, and if you did and enjoyed the video, if you wouldn't mind leaving a like, subscribe, it'll really help the channel out. I wish you guys luck in the raids, and I'll see you guys in the next video.